Hi everyone, it's Den here. Welcome back to the School of Light. Well, right now we are at the workbench, and you know shit is serious because the soldering iron is out. But in this video, this is the follow-on video from our RGB basics video, and we are going to make a tool with some of the stuff that we saw in the last video. And the tool that we're going to make is a super basic version of this, which is quite a complex version of a light bow. Now this is a version of a tool that I designed and started using back in 2010. It was a white one that I made, and we're going to be making one of those as well. But this is an RGB version. Yeah, and we're going to make one of these today, but it's not like this. This one's all 3D printed and fancy and bits and pieces. And using aluminium tube. We're not going to do that. We are going to make one using super basic components, and I'm going to try and make it so that if you have some basic tools at home, you can make one too. So let's have a chat through the things that we're going to use. But first of all, we need to talk about safety. We are going to be using a power tool, and we're going to be using solder. Solder has fumes. I have fans and the aircon on them, bits and pieces in here. Drills, you can hurt yourself. So be careful. Don't be a dick, basically. Okay, let's talk about the different things that we need. Now, if you've gone back and you've watched our any of our LED basics videos, one of the things that you're going to learn is that it's all about a circuit. And in a circuit, we need some power. Now, if you didn't watch, it doesn't matter if you haven't watched the last video at all. I'll talk you through what we're doing. So we're using this strip here, which I'll put it on the screen, but I think it's 2812 addressable RGB LEDs. Now the reason we're using these ones, mainly the reason I use them, is because they're very compact. There's 144 LEDs per meter, which means that when we're doing our light painting, we get nice dense color and shape. So those are the LEDs we're using. So in our circuit, we need LEDs, which are those. We need power. Now we're using one 18650 battery, and that battery goes into this device here, which is just a little holder like that. Bonk. Obviously, I'll put all of this stuff on the screen. Right, that has a positive and a negative lead, so we need power, which is our 18650 battery. We need a controller. We're using the SP110E controller that you saw in the last video, so that's going to be in our circuit. We need a button because we're going to be turning this thing off and on, so we need a button. The other thing that we need is this device here, which is a little plug, and you'll see how that puts our power into the controller. Now, in reality, you can pull these things apart, and you could solder the positive and the negative straight to the board. But for the purposes of today, I'm going to do this. We're going to put a controller in there. So I'll tell you how it's going to work. And then what we need is some aluminium flat bar. So this is 12 mil by 3 mil flat bar. And then we need a PVC tube. This is 27 mil outside diameter, 24 inside. So we'll call it 27 mil. However, it doesn't really matter that much. And what we're going to do is this bow, we're just going to recreate that, right? So we have a bottom bar and we have a bow along the top. The important thing to remember is you can do the principles that we're about to do here, you can apply to anything. You could stick this RGB tube up a thing, around a thing. You could wrap the RGB strip around this device and you'll get some nice wandy sort of a thing. Okay, now here, full disclosure, I realized that I'm kind of running short on these strips. So here is one I've already made because this is the second time I've shot this tutorial, but that's okay. But I am going to talk you through how we make this. So this is the flat bar. There's some double-sided tape, there's the RGB strip, and then I've wrapped it in this plastic tubing in order to protect it. And then I've done some wiring here. But I'll show you, it doesn't matter that I've pre-made it, I'll show you how it works. Okay, fundamentals. Here is our bottom bar. right? Here's our bottom bar. We need a bow, so I've already pre-bent this one, so we need to decide how much of a bow we want in it. That is a creative decision. You don't need me to tell you how much. So here's what I'm going to think about. I have pre-drilled this hole here, so this is and I'll tell you why, because it's 12mm strip. Where's my vernier gauges? That's hilarious. I think this is a 12.5mm. Yep, so this is a 12.5mm drill. And what I've done is get your piece of wood, Den. This is my fancy bench under here. So I've pre-drilled a hole at one end, all right, 12.5mm. And the idea is that we put our bar into here, we slot it into there, and it just sits in there like that. And then we can bend it over, right? Now, here's what we're going to do. We need to make a decision about how much of a bend there is in our bar. If I get it, I pull it up like this. Let's have a bit of I think what we do, let's have a bit of a bend in this one. So if I go like that, and then over here, I am going to mark that with a pen, like this. Bloop. Cool, so I've marked where that is. Now the other thing that we need to do is we need to put a button in the middle here. And I like to have the button here like that, so that when I'm holding it, I can put the button on like that. So we also need to drill a hole there as well, but that's easy to work out after. So I'm going to ditch that over here. Now we obviously need, if you think about this, here is a line at the top and we need our hole here. If we put it round to the side, it's not going to be in line. So the way that I do that is I just put it up like that so that it's pointing straight up and down. There is probably a better way to do this. I'm just going to put a cross there, and then what we're going to do is we want to put the button bang in the middle. So you get our tape measure, and that is 78. That is 78 centimeters. Listen to this. So that's 40. What's half of 78? Hey Siri, what is 78 divided by 2?
78 divided by 2 is 39.
39. All right. I am a dipshit. I cannot do maths. All right, so I'm just going to mark that. And again, we just want to have it along the same plane. So it's on the top, so I'm just going to put a little cross there. Now, one of the things to think about, I don't know if you've ever done any drilling before, but a 12.5mm drill is hard to go through there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to we'll do a bit of a pilot. Safety, please. Safety, safety. All right, so I'm going to grab that. I'm just going to pre-drill this hole a bit. There we go. And then there we go. So we've got that one there. Oh, look at that. I left quite a bit of sort of a burr on there. So I'm just going to trim that off, cut away from myself. There we go. All right, now our hole for our button. Now I use this button here. I'll put it on the screen. And these are great. They're super reliable, but you can fundamentally use any button that you like for there. So I'm just going to grab that. Now, here's the thing. It has a screw that you can screw on there, and you can put it in there, and then if you want to put the screw on the back, I don't worry about it. You'll see I'm just going to punch some hot glue in there, but if you do, you need to cut a hole on the other side to get in there. Obviously, no one has fingers that long. Now I need to know how big the hole is I'm going to cut for that. That is 11.8, but because the outside diameter is huge, I can pretty much use the same drill that we used for that. All right, here we go. Pre-drill my hole. And then the big one. There we go, tidy it up a bit. Put that there. Nice, make sure that it'll go in there. Beautiful. All right. So we need to decide what end our all our power and stuff is going to go down for a couple of reasons. But I'm going to decide that it's this end. Now, see how this hole is not all the way at the end? That's fine. We can trim it off afterwards. So what we have, let's talk about our circuit. So here are the components that we have that we need to think about. So we've got the RGB strip has 3 wires coming off the end of it. So in this case, they're red, green, and blue, right? And they go in to the controller. They connect to the controller like that. All right, so these wires all come, so it connects like that, and then the power goes in here. Now we need to put a button into the circuit, and I learned this the hard way. We're going to have from the battery, we're going to have a positive and a negative lead, and they're going to connect into this controller. I used to, or one time, I put the button into the battery side of the circuit, and the problem with that is that once you have programmed the controller, we want to be turning the button off and on, and if you put the button into the side that supplies power to the controller, to the Bluetooth controller, it disconnects from your phone or from the app. We don't want that while we're setting it up. So what we do is we connect the positive and the negative to the controller. It comes down, and then leading off to the RGB strip are 3 wires again, right? And what we do is we put the button into the circuit, into the power line of that. And the power line in all of the ones I have is red, but it's generally indicated on your RGB strip. It will say plus 5 volts on that side. That's the side that we cut into. Now, as I said, I've pre-done this one, but I'll talk you through the steps for putting this on here. So we have our flat bar strip. Most RGB strips have double-sided tape on the back. So if I peel that off, we have double-sided tape, right? And that double-sided tape, whoops, that double-sided tape there is rubbish. So what I do is I get this stuff. So this is a good quality double-sided tape. It just happens to be 12 mil. I put it onto the bar. So I'm demonstrating here with one. I make sure the bar is nice and clean. So we put it onto the bar like that. We trim it to the length that we want. All right, so I've put that double-sided tape on the bar there. Then we peel it off. I know this seems ridiculous, right? But I tell you what, the last thing you want is your RGB strip to be coming off your bar while you're in the middle of it. And then we get our strip and we put it on. But you want to, because of the next step, we want to make sure that it's nice and level with the edges. There we go. Nice one. And then you push it on. All right, there we go. So there is our RGB strip with the double-sided tape attached to the flat bar. And then what we do is the hose. I get this at my local hardware store. And then what you do is you just squish this a bit flat, and carefully you slide that over all the way to the end, and there we go. We've got our RGB strip is nice and protected for getting knocked around in the car or whatever. And this is how it ends up. So this is a this is a 1 meter length with RGB strip on it. Right. So let's put it together. Here we go. Now I have in my fancy pants one here, I designed it all so that all the controller and everything is inside here, and the battery's nice and sort of tidy there. Whatever. You don't need to do that. So let's get our... so that's what we need to do. So we need to put the button in the circuit. So what we need to do is I've got my button here, and we need to put enough wire to get it. I'll just tidy this up. We need to put our button in there like that. And then we need enough wire to get to the end. So I'm just going to grab a bit of wire. I know I've cut off way too much, but I used to have a bad habit of cutting off nowhere near enough wire. So if I make a length of that from there to there, plus a bit extra, so that's fine. So let's attach soldering iron. Be careful. Be careful with soldering iron. I really want you to, the fumes that come off these are not healthy. I have some fans and stuff in here, but I still don't like it going into my face. So I've tinned those. We'll attach it to the, oh, where did the fluffy, here we are. These have a little bit of fluff here that they're designed for waterproofing. And I tend to pre-solder my buttons. This is the same button that I use in the ball of light tool. There we go. So we just attach our wires to the button. There we go. And to this one. There we go. There we are. So you can see we've got our wires to there. Then we stick it in the, pop it down our piece of tubing there. And there it is out the end. And our button. Now we've got our, so this is our circuit for the button coming out of there. And our strip is going to, now I wonder, actually I just had a thought. I wonder if that goes through there. Oh, this is so good. The connector for the RGB strip actually goes through this hole, right, and out. And watch what that means. Watch this. Oh, this is so good. It's almost like I'd planned it. All right, look at that. So the wire goes in through that hole that we drilled as well. Now here's something to be careful of. So because our, oh, I know you're not going to be able to see this, in there, the wire, you want to make sure that, because the RGB strip, the aluminium strip, I wonder if you can see that in there. So that aluminium strip will go in and press hard against the back of the tube. You want to make sure that it's not pinching a wire. Beautiful. Oh, that looks so good. Oh, look at that. It's so tidy that the wire is going through there. I love that. All right. And then this bit goes like that. Ba-dong. Look at that. There we go. So there's our bow shape. There's our button. And then all our wires are coming out the end here, right? So what do we need to do? We need power and we need the controller. So we have the wires coming out the end here. So all we need to do is we need to put the button into the circuit, into that red side there. So you can see that I've already done this, but I will snip it. We'll just do it again, just to tidy it up. All right, dunk. Bump, and then we cut. This is our button circuit here. And the nice thing about all these wires just stuff up into there, so it's fine for them to have a bit of length. Twist it together. Solder it up a bit. Nice. Nice. Then tidy the wires up. I don't know if you can see this, but I'll show you in a tick. Here we go. All right, so I've joined, so that button is now connected to, so this is the connector that goes to from the controller to the RGB strip. So we've got 3 wires and I've put the button into the red power circuit. Now I use heat shrink. Here we are, hi. I use heat shrink on these, but you can, if you don't have heat shrink, right, because we're doing this super simple, you just put a bit of electrical tape onto there. Oh my gosh, if you are a Sparky or an electronics expert, you've probably watched me do 46 things that are absolutely horrific. I apologize, I don't apologize for that. All right, there we go. So that's done. Now we've got our power, and we need our power to go into there. And it just has this little, I have no idea actually what size that is. So we want to, Now here's a trick. Here's a trick for when we're using these. They tend to move around a little bit, especially when we're doing it sort of a bit like this. So what I like to do is see under here where these wires go in. I like to just put a little dab of hot glue on there. Because what that means is if that wire moves around a bit, which they do with me, because I'm always, oh my god, that looks wonky, because they just don't break. The solder on these connectors tends to be a little sketchy, if I do say so myself. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I am going to just put these onto here. All right, so we have, this is the inside of our little plug. So there's two bits. There's this bit on the outside and the inside. This one on the short one is positive and the other one is negative. So I want to connect our black and red wires to that. So I just pre-solder this a bit. There we go. So there are our, all right, there we go. So there we have a little power supply. So there's our 18650 battery and our plug that goes into the controller. Now what I always love to do is, as I'm going, is just check that everything's working. So what I've done is I've just plugged everything before I lock anything away. I just check that everything's working, and yes, I've pressed the power button and it's going. Beautiful. So now all we need to do really is just tidy things up. Now here is something that we need to do. When this thing is lit, you can imagine when this thing is lit up and we're doing our light painting, this giant white piece of white here, light coming off it can cause disturbances in our light painting. So what I like to do is, now I am just going to break this apart because it's a lot easier when it's apart. I can't because I've already joined that together. What an egg. So I am actually going to disconnect that. So I'm just going to go put a bit of hot glue on our button. Just a touch so that we can undo it if we need to. So I've just put a dab of hot glue on there just to hold it in place. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're just going to tidy this up. So I'm going to go and cut. I'm just going to go and cut the end off there so it's about the same length. All right, so what I'm going to do is I have some electrical tape because we don't want this to be white because the light coming on it will show up in our picture. Now, no doubt, I'm going to fast forward through this, and if you're a Sparky, don't take the piss. I am. All right, here we go. So there's just electrical tape. All right, there we go. There we are. So there's a nice, dark, look how rubbish. Oh my gosh, Sparkies are so good. They're so smart. Okay, so here we go. So we've got our button, we've got our thing. I've covered that up, but we're just gonna cut, we're just gonna trim that like this. Whoa. Nice one. And the same on this end. There we go. Pop that into there. Power in first, so we're going to tuck our plug in there. Nice one. So there we go. So we've got our circuit now. Now here is something to think about. By the nature of using an 18650 battery, we need to have access to it. The controller as such pretty much can go anywhere on here, and this is what I'm going to suggest. So we're going to tuck our wires into there, like that. Now you know what, in hindsight, I might have left a little more length on here actually, so we've got more space to tuck our wires. That was a bit of a fail actually, but that's okay. We always learn, right? So I'm just going to tuck our wires into there. Yeah, I definitely would have length. Actually, I would have left quite a bit of length on there. But that's all right. That's okay. Here we go. So our controller is going to come out onto here like that. I'm just going to tidy this up with some tape. Like that. Electrical tape is great. Mainly because you can undo it really easily as well if you cock it up like I often do. Tidied up the end like that. And again, we're just going to make sure that, yep, so it's still going. Yeah, so definitely a bit more length on there. So our controller is going to come down here because it's easy to tape it onto there. I reckon a really important thing is that if you're just starting out and you're just sort of getting the hang of all this stuff, using things like electrical tape and hot glue are great because you can reverse back out. If you muck up a connection or something goes pear-shaped, it's really easy to go back in and do a repair. All right, there we go. So there we are. There's our controller. Look how tidy that end is. Nice. So there's our controller. Here's our power. So again, we're just going to check. Awesome. So we've still got a circuit. A little more tape on there. I didn't cover it up very well. Now our little power supply that we've got here, it can just go on here if you like, right? But we're going to be waving it around quite a bit. So what we want to do is we don't want that battery to come flying out. So cable tie is good for a couple of reasons. One, it'll hold the battery in place. Two, when it comes time to recharge the battery, it's easy to pop off. And there you go. So it's, that's relatively secure on there. Yep, that feels good. And there we go. So there is a light bow, RGB. Look at that. There's some pretty cool colors happening on there. Yeah, there we are. Look at that. It's lightweight. Because we've put the hose on top of the strip, it's nice and robust. We can just unplug that there so that we're not, it's not going to drain the battery. So look at that setup there. So I've just cable tied that on there like that. Now there are some really elegant solutions to supporting and holding RGB batteries with leads and stuff already. You can take this RGB strip and you can attach it to so many different things and do so many different things with it. This is just one idea. You don't have to use fancy pants stuff. I'm going to put a list on the screen now of the items I've used, what they cost me here in Australia. Here is something really interesting actually. You can go and buy RGB, any electronic stuff at your local electronics store. You can buy it on Amazon or you can buy it on AliExpress. Now, just for shits and giggles actually, on the screen now, I'm going to put a meter of this strip that I use, and I'll put an example of what it cost me at a couple of different places. So it might be my local electronics store, and then I'll give you an example on Amazon, and then on AliExpress. Now I buy a lot of stuff off AliExpress and have had amazing success. I've never had a fail off AliExpress compared to other places, that's for sure. All right, there we go. That is an RGB light bow, we'll call it, because it looks like a bow. Yeah, the next thing we're going to do, so in the next video, we're going to make a calligraphy tool, which is really good. And you may have found something I just did absolutely ridiculous or difficult to comprehend. But I'm a doofus, and this is a great way just for you to see that even though I have made some beautiful high-end looking and developed tools, you can have a lot of fun with a soldering iron and a hacksaw and cheap stuff off the internet. I hope you have a mountain of fun. Let's go out and I'll show you some images that we made with our light bow. Have fun, be safe, peace. Here we are, we're in the studio and we've got our RGB light bow. Now, what I'm going to do, I've got it on a bit of a whizzy whizzer here, but I want to check in the app. Let's just make sure this is the one. Yep, there we go. Okay, so we're connected to the bow. Now I'm just going to pick a pattern to go to. Let's pick a nice cool one. Let's just pick one that moves nice and quick, so we can get a bit of a feel. Something that's a bit colourful. All right, there we go. Well, that's nice and colourful, that one. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I am just going to pop the camera onto we're going to use intervalometer mode. So that is where I just set the camera. I'm going to set it to take 3-second exposures. 3-second exposure, wait, 3-second exposure, wait, 3-second exposure, wait. And I'm going to shoot a bit of video while we're doing it and see how we go. But yeah, let's get into it. I know we're inside. It's very hot. It's like 35 degrees outside today, but I'm in the studio doing some other stuff, so I thought we'd give it a go. All right. All right, here we go. So I'm starting the intervalometer. I'll get this video going. And then what I do is I just come out here. I'm just going to slowly come through the scene, and the camera's taking multiple exposures. I'm just twisting it. What happens, right, is you just get used to what makes a nice pattern, moving it boldly across the frame. So 3-second, it's just taking multiple 3-second exposures. All right, let's have a look at those. Oh yeah, they're great. Look at that. So good. So let's change the pattern. So I'm going to jump back into the app. Yeah, I like that one. See, that's going to give us some nice dark gaps. All right, let's go. Alrighty, well let's take a little look at these. Yeah, that one's cool because it's kind of, obviously you get that sort of weird step down thing. All right, well there you go. So there's our RGB light bow. Wow, so good. Alrighty, I hope you managed to get a light bow made yourself and get out and have some fun. Catch you soon.